live on the air. I'm Richard Saile.
This is wild.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Lounge Time. I'm your host, Rich Saile, and today we have a lot to cover following college football week 7. Big head coach got fired, James Franklin from Penn State. Indiana goes into Oregon and wins. We're going to talk about that game. Plus, Baker Mayfield, he rolled over the 49ers, 5-1 Bucs. The Colts, 5-1 in the AFC. We got some teams that we're finally going to start giving some attention to that deserve this show's respect about time too. And that's on me at the end of the day. But this is your episode today for those teams we don't talk about, and I apologize. But again, we will get to it as we go along. Now, we have a lot to cover. We'll start in the NFL first because it's basically a two-horse race of topics right now on the poll that I sent out last night at around midnight. One of them was Baker Mayfield, and the other one is which team that suffered their second loss, Lions or Eagles, should be more concerned. Those are going to be the two topics we'll start off, and then I'm going to go as kind of how I feel like we should go with this. But let's start off with the primetime game of the week. And no, it's not involving the bandwagons. This is not your episode today. I don't care if you beat the Lions. Injury-prone secondary. This is not your show today. This is for the teams we don't talk about much on the show that don't get our attention, that are actually good. Okay? And plus, bandwagons, you don't want to miss Sunday's episode. Yes, we are doing an episode Sunday before the 1 p.m. games. I have Lounge Time's number one fan. He'll be making his debut very soon. That'll be your episode, bandwagons, not this one. Let's start off with the Niners and Bucs. Baker Mayfield, this guy, I mean, what a turnaround from number one overall pick in Cleveland to being casted off to Carolina and then the Rams, and now 3 years in Tampa. He's on pace to not only make the playoffs again, not only is he doing it now without his top 3 receivers, but he's also about to be, right at this moment, the MVP frontrunner in the National Football League. It took him a while. And yeah, he's got a lot of good wins so far through 6 weeks that we're saying, you know what? I can't be mad right now if Vegas says, yep, he's the NFL MVP frontrunner at this moment. And if you think about it, he's got an opportunity to do more. And we're not even halfway yet. Okay, so let's take a step back. Let's go through Tampa Bay's wins. All in the fourth quarter. 4 of them were all fourth quarter comebacks. Falcons, Texans, the Jets, and then last week, and why am I drawing a blank? I just had it in my head and now I'm upset. I know it was, wait, I got it. Don't say anything. Seattle. Took me a while. In Seattle, tough place to play. So when you look at those wins, Seattle just went into Jacksonville, 4-2. Atlanta's a key opponent in their division on the road. Texans, we're going to find out more about them next week when they go to Seattle. And the Jets are not really that great. His only loss is to the Eagles before they lost 2 straight. And Mayfield played really well against a good 49ers defense. Now, before we get into the Niners defense. Fred Warner, wishing you a speedy recovery, man. That is a tough injury that he had. First Bosa, now him. We'll get to more on the Niners in a little bit, but wishing you a speedy recovery. That sucks. Dude was playing really, really good football, and then that injury happens, and you're like, oh, not another key player for the Niners. Yeah, but hoping you get a speedy recovery, Fred Warner. We love talking about you as the top middle linebacker in football. It sucks that season-ending ankle injury. If you saw it, was nasty. We're not going to get into that, but wishing you a speedy recovery. That's a tough blow for the Niners defense, especially since they just lost Nick Bosa 2 weeks ago. Getting into Mayfield's numbers, 17 to 23 for 256, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He has taken this Tampa Bay team after Tom Brady retired 3 years ago almost, won a playoff game against the Eagles, lost to Detroit on the last possession of the game in Detroit. Last year, home playoff game, loses to Jane Daniels on a game-winning field goal. So it's not like he's doing bad in the postseason. It's just coming down to the fact that the Bucs defense happens to get beat by better teams. And they run into hot teams too. The Bucs are a team right now that is extremely on fire right now. If that Eagles loss doesn't happen, we're talking about them probably being the best team in the NFL right now. And as we should be. I will say this, though. Ibuka got banged up. What does Baker do right after? Deep ball to Tej Johnson. And that throw, thought he overthrew it just a bit live. But how Tej Johnson was able to catch that, that's huge. That was a very big catch for Tej Johnson. And then he did the backflip right after, which I thought was cool. The Bucs are without their top 3 receivers. Mike Evans is supposed to come back. Imagine when this team gets Godwin back, Ibuka back, and Mike Evans back. Think about that for a moment. Imagine when they get those 3 guys back fully healthy. Look at the NFC for just a grand scheme of things. You just beat the Niners at home. You won in Seattle. You're going to play the Lions in Detroit next week. And the Lions secondary is banged up. So, okay, Bucs receivers banged up. Lions secondary banged up. If you beat them without your top 3 receivers, your stock is only going up. So, think about that for a moment. This is a big opportunity for him to enhance his resume and go, I could go into Detroit and beat them without my top 3 receivers. And if you beat them on top of that, forget it. Forget it. I don't want to hear the Mahomes bandwagons, the Mahomes stands. Oh, Mahomes should be MVP. If Baker goes into Detroit next week and beats the Lions without his top 3 receivers, nope. I don't even want to hear Mahomes stands talk. Baker would be over Mahomes. He would. Josh Allen, I know he had the bad loss to New England, people say, but New England's won 3 straight. But I would still have Baker over Josh Allen. Okay? And again, it's early. But right now, I wouldn't be mad at somebody at Vegas said, Mayfield's the MVP right now. He should be the favorite. No argument with me there. In Seattle, good win. Niners, good win. Lost to the Eagles, but that was before the Eagles lost 2 straight. But they almost came back on them. Okay? Green Bay, they're going to play the Lions next Monday, so that's why I have them. Green Bay, good team. We'll see how they do, right? Still got Atlanta once more. He's almost got wins against all the key NFC contenders right now at this very moment. And again, I haven't even gotten into their schedule. Well, yeah, he's going to play New England again soon, which is big. And that's going to be in Tampa. They go to the Rams. I forgot about that. Okay, that's the other team I forgot to mention. So they don't play Green Bay. But they do play the Rams. They play the Patriots. Some quality wins that he could stack up. And the Lions. So that tells me, okay, if the Bucs get healthy, are they the favorite in the NFC at this moment? I had Green Bay to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC early in the season with Parsons. And I still think that's a huge signing. And they beat the Bengals yesterday. But am I bold enough to say the Bucs are better than Green Bay at this very moment? It's close. It's very close. I did say, for those of you that don't remember, I said this is the sneakiest team in the NFC because I said if they can get healthy, this team's in trouble. In a good way. For a lot of teams. And I remember, I think it was week 2 or week 3, I was like, okay, this team could be a sleepy NFC contender. I think I might have talked about it when I was going through my projected Final Four. And I didn't talk about it much, but I wrote it on my post on YouTube because I forgot to put it in the preseason show. But for the record, I had the Bucs winning the South. But I think they're a second weekend NFL team. And I'm not going by what I'm seeing right now. I was going by what I saw with their divisional round first year with Baker losing to the Lions and then losing on the last possession of Jaden Daniels. They're a good team in the NFC. And I was like, okay, they could be a top 4 NFC team to get to the second weekend. Lions, Green Bay, Philly was up there. I wasn't completely sold on the Niners because of injuries. The Rams I had up there too, actually. But usually when you got 5 good NFC teams, one's going to miss it and have a tough playoff route. And then, again, Eagles I thought would take a little step back, but I thought they'd still be good enough there. Green Bay, before Parsons, I thought might have been that first weekend team out. But no, they're a second weekend team. I think Lions I thought would have taken a step back. I still think they would probably be there, but I'm not going to judge yet off 2 losses. I had Tampa as a possible second weekend team, and I think they still are. I forgot exactly who I had in the bracket that I drew up, but I think Tampa is no doubt in my mind at this moment. I would give them a slight favorite over Green Bay. I still like Green Bay to win the NFC at the moment. I'm not going to back off there because, yeah, the Dallas tie was bad and they lost to the Browns, but the Browns are a tough defensive line. Okay? In Cleveland, I mean, I'm not saying the loss was good at all, but that defensive line's a problem for a lot of people. I think Tampa, no doubt, should be the favorite in the NFC at this moment. Non-biasedly saying. Okay? I would have Green Bay a close second, and then I have probably the Lions and Eagles 3 and 4 at the very foreseeable moment. I wouldn't put the Niners yet because the injuries are starting to rack up. The Rams, I think, are actually... I'd probably put them 4, and then I have the Lions and Eagles at tie for 5th. Because the Rams are a good team. Puka will be back. Don't worry about the injuries so much. I expect them to not play him against Jacksonville and then have him rest with a bye, and then he'll be back. They'll be fine. They haven't clicked yet on offense yet, and when they click, they'll be good too. Okay? Even though they are getting a little older with Devontae and Stafford in the 30s and stuff like that. And then I think I would put Seattle at 7, even though they've been really impressive. They had a good win at Jacksonville, right? So I feel like we have to give the Bucs seriously the title of the best team in the NFC at this moment. If we're saying right now, who is the best team in the NFC at this moment? It's Tampa. Mayfield should definitely be the front runner for MVP at this moment. He's got the win so far. Atlanta on the road, Seattle on the road, and then the Jets at home and in Texans. 3 of those wins on the road, he had to come back in the fourth quarter and he won on the last drive of the game. And now you got another opportunity to do it without your top 3 receivers. If that happens against the Lions next Monday night, I will say on this show, Baker Mayfield should be the front runner for MVP. I'm still going to say it right now. What he's done these last 3 years in Tampa has been phenomenal. And it's not even his fault that they lost in the playoffs. Not at all. He's playing really well. And people thought when Brady retired and they got Baker Mayfield, they thought, okay, they take a step back. Well, it would take him time to learn a new system and stuff like that. They went 9-8, beat the Eagles when the Eagles are falling off. That's still a good win in the playoffs. I don't care what anyone says. Lions, it was one possession. Last year, home playoff game, they lose to Washington because Jay Daniels, they were the hottest team in the NFC at that point. No shame in that. Now, the key for the Bucs now is you're one big piece away. And I saw this on Get Up. Imagine you can get Max Crosby to go with Vita Vea. Yeah. That's a defense right there. Jamel Dean's a good corner, right? They have some good pieces on defense. Levante David, the old linebacker, is still balling. I mean, he got a sack on Mac Jones. I was like, yeah. And that guy's a Hall of Famer. I'll say that. But Tampa, if they can get a running game, which Rachaad White's been solid for them, they can get healthy. They could be in play for the 1 seed where the NFC goes through them. I'm going to say right now, it's very slim, but they have a real shot. And they're back third of the schedule, maybe even the back quarter. No, the back third is really easy because 5 of them are against the division. Or 4 of them are against the division. That's crazy. And Atlanta is shaky on offense. Carolina looks like they have something going. They're not as bad as people seem. And then the Saints are just going through a rebuild year. Tampa could have the division in a really good spot before they start playing their last 4 in the division at that last third of the season. And it could be like, all right, we got a favorable path to maybe getting the road to go through us. And again, you don't have to worry about cold weather, nothing, which is a huge advantage too. But it's early. I don't care if I'm overreacting. I'm going by what I'm seeing through 6 weeks. And Mayfield is the MVP frontrunner at this moment. And the Bucs right now are the best team in the NFC based on the resume from what we've seen. And imagine when they get healthy. Good luck. They're going to be tough. Now let's segue into the next topic I want to go over, which is which 4-2 teams should be concerned after suffering their second loss, the Lions or the Eagles. Let's go to the Eagles first because they just dropped their second game in a row. And it's been a rough week for Philly sports fans, okay? Trust me. Those fans, some of them are bad, okay, and obnoxious. But some of them are loyal and they are through, like, they ride or die. But it's been a rough week for them. Penn State fires James Franklin after losing double-digit favorite to UCLA and Northwestern. Phillies lose on a tough Game 4. Eagles lose a 14-point lead to Denver last Sunday. And now Thursday they lose to the Giants in MetLife to Kim Scatterboo and Jackson Dart. And Kevin Patullo, they want to get rid of him already. Which, a lot of it does fall on him. But they don't know what the fuck they are through 6 weeks. And I'm saying right now, I would be more concerned with them a little bit over the Lions. Why do I say that? Because I think the Lions, even though with the injuries, the Lions could still score and they could still be a playoff team. They know what they are. They're just injured on the back end. And even if they make a deadline move, you know they're going to be fine. I don't know what this Eagles team, if they're going to be fine at the moment after seeing these past 2 weeks. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the game Thursday. But my Giant fan friends, I've had both of them on the show last year. I'm hoping to get it again. They're feeling freaking pretty good that, man, we beat the Eagles. So, number one, if you have a problem with not knowing what you are through 6 weeks, that's a sign of bad things to happen. Because I said to you guys too, Saquon Barkley, the Madden curse, Offensive Player of the Year curse, it's Super Bowl hangover, maybe. I don't feel like the mental part of the Eagles is at a hangover. I just feel like they haven't clicked yet. And I'll say this, that if they're struggling to get any offense going, and you don't know if you're a running team this year, if you're a throwing team this year, that's a sign of you're going to be fighting until the last week of the season to see if you're a playoff team. Talent alone, they should make it. I expect them to make it. But when you can't beat the Giants in Giants, a game you should win, and Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart go off against you. Mind you, the Giants didn't even have Malik Neighbors or Darius Slayton. So two of their top receivers are out. And you can't beat the Giants? Oh, there's absolutely cause for concern. Now, Jalen Carter, again, when he's out, Cowboys ran wild on him, Giants ran wild on him. So, if you don't have your best defensive player, arguably, and you get ran through by Dallas and the Giants, that's number one. It demonstrates how big Jalen Carter is to this Eagles defensive line and this defense alone, because they can't stop the run if he's out of the game. That shows how impactful a player he is. Not only that, offensively, if you can't score points and you can't put scoring drives together, you are not expected to win many games. So that's a problem, let alone there. And I hope that this mini bye week that they're going to use, they take full advantage of it. Because if you come out flat against Minnesota with Carson Wentz starting in Minnesota and they dog walk you bad in Vikings and you go to 4-3, sky is falling. And yes, I'm quoting Chicken Little. Goated Pixar movie, by the way. Goated movie. I don't even think it's Pixar. Just know it's Disney. Okay? But the Chicken Little phrase, the sky is falling, would be really, really evident if the Eagles drop 3 straight and lose to the Vikings and get dominated. Because Minnesota, they're not a bad offense on paper. They just got to get the quarterback position right. But every time you think that they do, something happens at the worst moment. Sam Darnold chokes against the Lions, and then the offensive line just absolutely collapses against the Rams in the playoffs. Kirk Cousins wins all these close games. He can't beat a good team in the playoffs when it matters. He's like, my eyes, postseason. That's what he is. And then they had the whole Josh Dobbs circus 2 years ago, and they were banged up, and that was a disaster. And J.J. McCarthy starts off. He doesn't look great. Wentz, he's not a bad quarterback, but with those receivers, you know what he is. Turnover machine at times, and he forces it too much. But again, O'Connell's just got to settle him down a bit. And they have their bye this week. So if they come out of the bye and handle this Eagles offense, it's a problem. And Brian Flores will blitz Jalen Hurts. Mark my words. But their run defense isn't that great. What is this Eagles team going to be is what I'm worried about. And I think that's a legitimate concern for them. I really do. I'm not concerned about the Lions too much because the Lions, we know what they are. Power football team, Montgomery Gibbs, play action, set up Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, physical, downhill, at your face type of team. They just got to get healthy on defense. That's it. Their problem is injuries at the worst time. They have material. They have an identity. We know they know a formula to win games. It's the playoffs when they get so plagued with injuries. That's your problem with them. And sometimes Dan Campbell's analytics getting too gutsy. Because you can only go for it for so many times, and then at some point it just doesn't work. And then when it doesn't work, you don't score. And then if you don't score, the other team cashes in and makes you pay for it. I'm not too concerned with the Lions. I'm not. I would be more concerned if I'm the Eagles right now. That's what I would be. Considering your division, Washington, if they win tonight, you still got to play them twice. Dallas is no defense. And the Giants are rebuilding. And Jaden Daniels, mind you, was out 2 games. And they're closing the gap on you for the division. There's a reason there's been no repeat winner since 03-04. And who was the last team to do it? The team I'm talking about right now, the Eagles. So, to answer that question, the Eagles I'd be more concerned with. Because if you don't have an identity and you can't stop the run without your best defensive player, that's a problem's waiting to happen. That's a sign of average football team glaring all over it. And if you can't get this mini bye to at least get somewhat of an identity that you can carve out for this team through the next 11 games, there's going to be some major problems. And Howie won't settle for that. He'll make deadline moves. We know this guy. He'll make a move. He ain't scared to do it. So, that's that. There's one more NFL team I want to talk about, and they deserve our undivided attention. Actually, we could say 2, for that matter. And I'm going to go with this team because my cousin and my uncle, we've talked about it off camera a lot. And that's the Indianapolis Colts. And this is my fault because I've wanted to talk about them for the last 2 weeks. And I've never had the time because we've had big stories and all that stuff to go over. The Indianapolis Colts, ladies and gentlemen, are 5-1 in the AFC. They are leading the AFC South because Seattle beat Jacksonville this past week. And the Colts, mind you, have steamrolled the Miami Dolphins and the Las Vegas Raiders. Bad teams. That's what good teams are supposed to do. Beat up on the shit teams. They beat up on Tennessee on the road. Do what you have to do there. And then in week 2, if I remember correctly, they beat the Broncos on a game-winning field goal. Denver's also 4-2. And they beat the Kyler Murray-less Cardinals. I'm not going to talk about them. They're ass. And they're stuck with the Matt curse, which, by the way, for those of you that don't know what the Matt curse is, I will have my friend Vinny come over and explain what that is on a later episode. I'm not going to do it today. But basically, any team that he picks, they are on a downhill swing. Cardinals are his team. He's a fake Cardinals fan, though, by the way. Okay? Yes, I'm exposing him right now when I should be talking about the Colts. Back to the topic at hand. Jonathan Taylor, before he got banged up with injuries and the carousel of quarterbacks and the debacle of an old washed-up Matt Ryan failing and a last-leg Phillip Rivers. Well, no, that was during those years. And Carson Wentz being awful, and then the Anthony Richardson experiment being awful. He got overlooked. That dude was arguably the best back in football with Derrick Henry in the same division. He was. And we glossed over it because they could never get to the playoffs, and that was some part on coaching, that was some part of the quarterback problems. And now, since Shane Steichen's been the coach, guys, the Colts have been in the hunt for a wild card spot the past 2 years. The first year, it came down to the last game against the Texans and Gardner Minshew overthrowing Nyheim Hines, I think it was, on 4th down. And that would have been possibly the Colts' ticket to the postseason by winning the AFC South. Instead, they were eliminated. Think about that for a moment. That was 2023. And this team won, I want to say, 9 games. They were 9-8 that year. Could have been 10-7. I could be off on that. And I'm going to say they were 9-8. Last year, Joe Flacco was starting and looked better than Anthony Richardson. And this team was still in the hunt and lost to the eventual 7 seed Denver Broncos in Denver because Anthony Richardson looked horrible. And they somehow finished in between that 7-10, 8-9 range. So this team has been a competitive team in the AFC. They just haven't put all of it together. But now, Daniel Jones comes from Kevin O'Connell's system in Minnesota, spent maybe almost halfway of last year, maybe a third, and was the backup to Darnold, leaves the Vikings via free agency, and goes to the Colts, who need a quarterback because Anthony Richardson, they don't believe is the guy. Not only that, we're seeing a Daniel Jones that we have not seen since 2022, Brian Daboll. And they're 5-1. And he looks pretty solid. And the Colts have material. Jonathan Taylor. Michael Pittman does not get talked about. He's a good receiver. He can block. Tough physical 50-50 possession receiver. He's not maybe the best route runner, but he's solid. They drafted Tyler Warren, one of my favorite players in the draft. He's doing everything for him. Alec Pierce, good slot receiver. Josh Downs had a case of the drops a little bit at times. He's solid, okay? Mo Alley Cox was a good tight end for Carson Wentz a while ago. And there's backup tight end. The Colts are not a bad skill, talent, receiver group. Running backs included. But they're winning. They're scoring. And Shane Steichen, for those of you that don't know his history, he was with the Chargers with Phillip Rivers, goes to the Eagles with Sirianni, develops Jalen Hurts, gets them to the Super Bowl, loses by one possession to the Chiefs, goes to the Colts, and has them basically as a very competitive team and nearly made the playoffs twice, despite Anthony Richardson being one of the all-time draft busts at the quarterback position these last 2 years and looking on 3. Because Daniel Jones has outdueled him. They said, Richardson, you are not the guy anymore. You have not developed into what we thought you would be at number 3. Daniel Jones has outplayed him, and we're going to go with Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones has made them look really, really good. Shane Steichen's record of developing quarterbacks is also really good, too. Gardner Minshew was a good backup and got them nearly a game into the postseason. Think about that. So who deserves more credit, Rich? Daniel Jones or Shane Steichen for the Colts' 5-1 start? I would say you have to give both of those guys credit to a degree, but I would give the slight edge to Steichen because he's had a good competitive team with the Colts. They just haven't nailed the position and they've never quite been healthy. But now that they've nailed this position and he's got Daniel Jones playing smart, taking care of the ball type of a game playing with the Colts, they're 5-1. And their defense, they don't have a lot of household names. This defense has DeForest Buckner, a good interior defensive lineman. They have a good edge rusher in Pay and Latu. And then their secondary, Kenny Moore was a good slot corner, right? Mekhi Blackman, he's a good safety. And then Neville Gallimore, I liked at Oklahoma. He's finally looking okay. Like, these guys are not bad on defense. They just don't have a lot of household names. And they just signed Jermaine Pratt. But guess who's coordinating that defense for the Colts? One of the sneaky good hires of the offseason, Lou Anarumo. Why do I bring up his name? Do you remember the Bengals defense? That everybody blamed him for what was going on? Well, look at the Bengals now. We sure it's on Lou Anarumo? It's not. And I was one that I thought Lou Anarumo should have been a head coach at one point. Because what he did to Mahomes in that second half of 2021 AFC Championship, it's one of the most impressive game plans I've seen easily of these last 5 years. So, and look at the Colts. 8 to Miami, 3 to Vegas. The Broncos scored 27, 26, 28 maybe. Titans scored 20. And the Cardinals scored 27. Yeah, they're going to have games. But what Shane Steichen's doing to this offense, with Daniel Jones, having him play turnover-free football, is impressive. And I just gave you his track record of what he's done with quarterbacks. That alone has to factor that in. I would give Steichen the slight edge. And I think right now, if we're having a Coach of the Year award discussion, he's at the very top, if not my frontrunner. And I love Mike Vrabel. I would put him in the top 3, but I wouldn't put him ahead of Steichen from what I'm seeing. Who expected them to be 5-1? I didn't. And they're playing good football. And that's what you want. And Lou Anarumo, as defensive coordinator, all he has to do is just make sure the defense does its job. And if they can get to the quarterback, which Pay got 2 sacks yesterday on the Cardinals. Buckner's their interior guy in the middle that can be a disruptive force. Their back end, I'm not quite sold on. If I'm the Colts, if you get Tariq Woolen, that's a key need. Because if you can get Woolen in that scheme, that's going to be good. That's what they're missing. One guy in the secondary, maybe a linebacker, and that defense is legit. But they're playing good ball. But they need, I think if I'm the Colts at the deadline, I'm looking at one piece there. But Daniel Jones, has he finally fixed his turnover problems? I'm not going to say yet, but he's off to a really good start. And I think that, again, comeback player of the year, maybe. I don't know. But it's looking pretty good. Seattle and Jacksonville. I mean, I've kind of talked about Seattle a little bit, but I want to go into college football a little bit. All right? And I want to talk about Indiana briefly because I watched Indiana and Oregon, and that was a very good game by Indiana. And Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore, 2 guys that might be the first pick in this year's draft. I wanted to see them head-to-head, and I watched this game pretty closely. Indiana, I said after Illinois, they had a big win. That was a good win at home. Now the next step is going in to be the top 10, top 5 team on the road, and they go out there and do it. They didn't throw deep a lot, but Mendoza, for the most part, outside of the pick 6, he did what he had to do. And I'll pull the numbers up real quick as we're waiting. But the biggest thing I saw was after the pick 6, he responded. And that's a good sign of a quarterback that, you know what? He may not be the biggest name because he doesn't play at an LSU or he doesn't play at an Ohio State or he doesn't play at an Alabama or Georgia, but those little qualities that guys would be late rounders for that people overlook often too much, that's impressive. And I might have the play-by-play drive. Yep, I want to make sure I'm right on this. Because they were up 10-7 on Oregon in the first. And they were up by 3 going into the locker room. And I knew Cignetti wasn't happy with all the penalties. And he lost his mind. I was afraid that he was going to get thrown out. And as much as I make fun of him because he shit talks a bunch too. And it actually makes me laugh to a degree. He did what he had to do. And he came in with a good game plan. I mean, they really did. And Mendoza took care of the ball outside of the pick 6. He did solid. Yep, I was right. So, after the pick 6 that Oregon got to tie the game, everybody's like, okay, here it goes. Oregon finally has flipped the switch. They're back on track. He goes right down the play, right down the field, 12 plays, 75 yards in over 6 minutes. And then when their defense got 2 picks on Dante Moore in the fourth quarter on back-to-back possessions, that was the nail that all they wrote. Really, the pick right after sealed it. And Curt Cignetti right now, as much as I make fun of him with all the shit talking and stuff, I mean, I laugh about it because I kind of like it. Although I kind of didn't like it last year because you didn't really do much. And then when you played the big boys, you shit the bed. And that's what the record was. And that's why I liked Oregon by 3. But again, Cignetti, this was his signature win in Indiana, which is huge. But now the big question is, are they a legitimate college football playoff national title contender? At this moment, it might be hard for me to say, yeah. I mean, they have a big road win. Oregon was debatably at number 2 or number 3 going into this game, depending on what you were judging. They beat him in number 3's Park. And Mendoza, 215. A touchdown. He ran the ball okay. Elijah Surratt. This guy, he might be a first-round pick. Let alone he might be in the Biletnikoff Award race. This dude, 8 catches for 121 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he was always open. He was making plays on a good Oregon defense that has players now. This is players. Aiden Fisher had a sack and a half. Kellen Wyatt, a sack and a half. Elijah Hardy, Isaiah Jones, sack each. And Jones had a pick. Lewis Moore. These guys you don't hear about, but this is what you love if you're a team that hasn't been a big-name team that wants to make a statement to the world. Look at us. We're not household names. We're not 5-star, 4-star recruits from, not from Oregon or some that are like from California. No. We're guys that may have been from small schools that have been overlooked. And Cignetti said he looks to develop those players. He doesn't go after a lot of those big recruits. And I'll tell you what, some guys can win that way. Indiana, last year, they were building a little something, and they got beat by big teams. And I think Cignetti, after all that shit-talking he did, after losing to Ohio State and Notre Dame, I think he was like, okay, we have to get some talent. We have to develop that, but we need to be able to find those missing pieces for us to become not just, one-hit wonder, to becoming a great team. Now, if you remember, Indiana 5 years ago and Michael Penix, who was top 10 pick, they had material, but not much material. This Indiana team has got some players. And I watched a lot of college football this week. Indiana and Missouri, these like middle-tier Big Ten teams and SEC teams. This is my scorching hot take for today. I think the era of these big teams, they are starting to slowly realize not all translate to what the success is expected. Look at Texas, look at Clemson, look at Penn State. Top 3 teams going into the country this year. All are not even in the top 25. Well, Texas just made it back because they beat Oklahoma. But at one point, all 3 were not in the top 25. And all these little schools, these middle-tier SEC Big Ten teams, they got a shot because if you hit the right transfers based on what you're trying to build, talent, culture, it can mesh to something being special. You could have a Notre Dame run like you had last year. You could. Where it all clicks and you know what you are and you could show these big schools with their NIL money. We don't have to pay all that much and your heavy boosters to win. We don't have to do that. We just have to get guys that know what the cause is to win a national title. Culture, buy-in, will develop you, and we can make it work. And if you can beat those big board teams like Indiana just did, you got a shot. And I think this is the first time I can definitively say all these middle-tier SEC Big Ten teams, to some degree, some Big 12 schools, they have a shot to be sneaky good as far as we're right there. We're right there. And sometimes a small program, they love their coach. Look at Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham. Top 25 coach. You want to have that chance and you know the guys you need to recruit. Sometimes that chip on your shoulder, that overlooked element, that's a good thing. Because no one can see you coming, but those that do, that are like, you know what, they're not a bad team. All they need is that one moment, and that's what Indiana cashed in. Big win for Signetti's group. And they've got some players. I think a lot of teams, some of these middle schools, Indiana, Missouri, I watched a lot over the weekend. They got some players. Missouri lost, though, but Indiana, this was a big statement. They've got some talent that is fun to watch. Now, quickly, let me go over James Franklin. It is mind-boggling and shocking that this team was number 2 in the country to start the season, had possibly a Heisman Trophy candidate in Drew Aller, loaded up on the receivers. Jim Knowles comes from Ohio State, made him the highest-paid defensive coordinator, and all of a sudden, you go from number 2 in the country to losing to double overtime against Oregon in the whiteout to losing as a double-digit favorite back-to-back weeks to bottom feeders in the Big Ten in UCLA and Northwestern. And then, forget it, the fan base lost. You lost the fan base. UCLA was the start of it. Well, really, Oregon was. UCLA added more because UCLA, to that point, was the worst Power 4 team in college football, and they made Nico Maliava look really good. And now Jerry Neuheisel is like a saint at UCLA. And they're completely forgetting about how well Tim Skipper's doing over there as the interim coach. And all they want to talk about is Jerry Neuheisel. Then you lose to Northwestern at home, and that's when the camel broke its back. Like, you're done. Like, it's bad enough we knew you couldn't beat Ohio State and Michigan, and now Oregon. Now you can't even beat the teams that are bottom feeders. No, you're done. You're done. And he was a good coach. Helped them get the last of the Sandusky troubles, right, out. Got them to be a really good team. They got one Big Ten title, which I remember because we have a Manalapan legend that was on that team. He had a big game against Wisconsin. Never forget that. That was cool. But they could never beat the big boys when you expect them to do it. And this is a job that is going to be highly coveted for somebody. Now, James Franklin, he'll land a job. He's a good small school, mid-tier, Power 5 job. Not a big boy job for him. He's not good at that. He'll get a job. Arkansas might throw a bag at him. Maybe Florida does if they fire Napier. But he's not an elite job coach. He's not. But he did a good job over there. Not a great job, though. Okay? Now, let me tell you guys the names I'm hearing for this job that is coming up for Penn State. The number 1 name is Matt Rule at Nebraska. Now, people are like, Rich, Matt Rule's not an upgrade over James Franklin. He's not. But they have the athletic director of Penn State has a close relationship with Matt Rule going back to the Temple days. Matt Rule was a Penn State alum, okay? Played for Penn State. That might be the next coach over there. That's the front runner. I will tell you this. Did we forget how good Matt Rule did with Temple and Baylor? Now, I know he hasn't done well after Carolina, and I know Nebraska, they haven't quite done well with him. I get that. And I'm not going to be mad at people that say that's a downgrade. But with the resources, I think Matt Rule has a really good chance to make Penn State be a respectable, viable, playoff contending team. I'm not saying they'll win Big Ten titles over there. No. But they'll be respectable in the Big Ten to where they'll be competing. Kenny Dillingham, I've heard, is also thrown out there. And I like Kenny Dillingham. I don't know if he's the fit for Penn State. I'll tell you this. I've heard Curt Cignetti's name thrown around, and I'll guarantee this right now. He's not leaving Indiana for Penn State. He's not. He's not going to leave Penn State for Penn State. He's not going to leave for Penn State. He's got a good thing going in Indiana. There's no way in hell. No shot is he going there. Okay, those are the three I've heard. And I'm trying to think of any other candidates I've heard that might be going to Penn State. And I'm trying to think based on teams right now. Mike Elko, again, I mean, look, Adam's good right now. Mike Elko ain't going to move the needle. Right? So, I think if you're Penn State, you also make this move thinking, okay, there is a guy out there that we like, that if we give him the right offer, and we know the guy we need with this roster, with these resources, we can be back to the level of competing for a Big Ten title and maybe national championship contending team with the right pieces added to it. And I think that, again, there is a name they like. Who it is, I have no idea. I'll tell you this, right now, if you made me say who it is, I think it's Matt Rule. Everything I said, I think it's Matt Rule. And we know he's had a good record with building small schools. My thing with Matt Rule is, again, Nebraska, he hasn't built them to what they should be. They could still be a playoff team. They're going to have to beat some big boys to do that, though. And again, this is where, if he can get them to the playoff, would you really drink the Kool-Aid on, oh yeah, he could do it at Penn State? I don't know, but Penn State has a lot more resources than Nebraska does. And that's where I go, okay, if him and the athletic director have a connection and a friendship from what they built going back to their Temple days, it could work. And you'll get people to come to Penn State because you got a lot of the Jersey guys, the Pennsylvania guys, some guys in New York, in the New England coast area. You'll get people, even Maryland to a degree. You'll get people. The question is, can you compete and beat the Ohio States and the Michigans? And Matt Rule's record against the good teams is not great, like James Franklin level. He's like James Franklin in not beating the top of the best top 25 teams. And that's where I go, I don't know if this is the right move. But again, if you're asking me who I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be him for all the reasons I've outlined. And I think that, again, I just feel like they're not going to move anywhere yet. But again, I want to see how Nebraska does before we start saying, okay, yeah, this is an upgrade. I wouldn't say it's an upgrade. I'd say it's just more of like, okay, you might be getting the same guy from what James Franklin is. Maybe slightly worse because he hasn't done it in Nebraska just yet. But that's hard to do with their resources. And they haven't quite put it together. The ghost of Tom Osborne has just been like, you guys will never be that good since I left. Which kind of sucks because they're one of those teams you root for to kind of get back on the mountain. Or at least be in relevancy. I don't know if they're going to get there yet. But Matt Rule, considering what he could be with Penn State, it's hard to say if it'll be that much of an upgrade. There's some reasons why it could be, and there's some reasons why it won't be. But right now, he'd be my front runner. Over Kenny Dillingham, over Kurt Cignetti, over Mike Elko, and I'm trying to think of other guys, too, that might be in that discussion. But I'll tell you right now, those would be the top three that come to mind. That I would say, top four, that I would say, okay, keep an eye on those names. I will say, though, I think that's not a bad move if they go Rule, but let's see. They have a guy in mind maybe that we don't know. But it's also been a job I know he's been eyeing. Anyway, that is going to conclude this episode recapping College Football Week 7 and NFL Week 6. Yes, we have a Monday Night Football doubleheader. But I am not interested in talking much about these games tonight. However, Thursday, we got guarantees. We got NFL Week 7. We've got Survivor Picks. Green Bay won. We got another one. I have one I'm eyeing right now. I'm just going to look it over and be like, okay, let me make sure. Okay? So that will be the next episode on Thursday. And then next week, we finally have a guest in studio, but it's a surprise. You'll have to wait to see who it is. But Sunday, we are looking at having a guest on Lounge Time before the NFL action. So if you want to wait till Monday to watch it, I don't blame you. If you want to watch it while you're watching football, that'd be cool. But make sure you guys follow us on Rumble. We are going to get episodes out soon. I'm going to try to do it right after I'm done recording, so that way we can get this thing back on the show and everything. Let's get it going. Hopefully, I fixed the technical problems that have been happening over there. You can also follow me on X at LoungeTimePod. I will answer questions on the show if you tweet at me. It doesn't have to be about just the Patriots. It could be anything on college football or NFL. Maybe if I have one of my basketball guys, maybe you could throw a basketball thing in there where I'm like, okay, what do you think about this? And I'll answer it. Especially with college basketball coming up, which I'll tease something in the coming episodes of. There might be one day where I'm just dedicating an episode strictly to college basketball. Okay? I'm finalizing it. Okay? You can also hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell on this channel, so that way you guys can get all of the latest content for this season. We are almost at the halfway point, and we will have guests, and there's going to be a lot to talk about. This is geared up to be an exciting second half of the season, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys. Plus, it helps the algorithm, it helps spreads the channel. We're trying to grow something, guys. And we can't do it without you guys hitting that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell. You can help grow the channel as much as I can help grow the channel. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Lounge Time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys on Thursday for the picks, guarantees, and Survivor. And I will see you guys on Thursday, where I have all the teams that you'll need to have covered at that point. Have a great Monday Night Football, everybody, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.